Sanda Masic. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Doing all right. So, you're a fellow flautist, and so seeing your rather impressive performances on Instagram and on Facebook, piqued my interest. And seeing a lot of the stuff that you've been doing, you're pretty disciplined with your social media. It seems to be very much centered around music, and I think that's a positive thing, and that's a good thing if you're trying to use it to sort of promote your career, what it is that you're trying to, the kind of attention that you're trying to gather for yourself. Now you're working on a DMA, is that right?
Yes, that is correct. I'm a second year DMA student at the University of Nebraska in Lincoln.
Right. And so where did you do your master's and your undergrad?
I did my undergrad and my master's in Serbia at the Faculty of Music Arts in Belgrade. And I just recently, let's put it that way, moved to the US 5 years ago when I graduated my master's and started my DMA degree in Serbia. I moved here for school.
I see. Now, we may have someone in common. One of my best friends, Doug Pierce, now Dr. Doug Pierce, who's a great composer. He did a composition DMA at the school you attend.
Yes.
He just graduated last.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Doug is a terrific musician. He's got a perfect pitch, and he can write for anything. Some of the best composition in very interesting hybrid works. He really specializes in sort of unusual subject matter. Like, for instance, one of his last compositions was a sort of a using sort of Western, harmony and classical music practices, infusing that with Orthodox service, Christian service. And he and I actually collaborated on something, and this was like one of the last things that happened before the pandemic began. It was February of 2020, and it was the first Saturday. I composed and commissioned him to collaborate and to compose some of the pieces also. An Eastern Orthodox Vespers in a black gospel setting. So very interesting and uncommon kind of stuff, but that's the kind of stuff that Doug is. He's all about that. That's my man. He was actually the best man in my wedding.
That's great. The world is small, especially the world of musicians, I guess.
Absolutely. And speaking of my wedding, see this level 13 here. It says on the bottom here, complete. That's because I've been married for 13 years now, which that went by very quickly. And then my son, who is now 8, and that's also happened very quickly. So now he's in the middle of everything. Of course, he loves video games. So there you go.
Nice to know.
I wore a Minecraft T-shirt on one of my interviews, and so I had to start out by explaining why I have a Minecraft T-shirt. It's because my son loves Minecraft, and I think him and my wife were, at a store shopping or something, and he saw the shirt and he said, "Oh, Daddy would love that shirt." Now, I don't really, Minecraft is okay, but no, I'm not really into Minecraft. But my son is into Minecraft, so he would love to see me wear a Minecraft shirt. See, that's a different kind of thing. So, all right. So why don't you talk to us about where you grew up and, your early experience with music and what got you into flute. I noticed that you're not just a flute player. You also sing. You have a great voice. I saw you play some piano, and it seems like I saw a picture with you in a bassoon. Is that right?
That is right, but that is only a picture because my best friend plays bassoon, so I have zero knowledge. Other than messing around with their reeds that sound very funny when they're not attached to the instrument, I do not have any other experience.
I see. So talk to us about your upbringing.
So I was surrounded by music since my early age because my mom works as a high school teacher. She teaches oral skills and music theory. I have someone from extended family who's a concert pianist, and that was always the role model in our family. I always knew that she was traveling and playing, and I was listening to her recordings. And we also had, I believe that was 5 musical instruments in our house, which was piano, guitar, mandolin, accordion, and there was one more. I cannot remember. I know there were 5, but I was not interested in any of them. And my mom, it doesn't matter if she was a musician, she did not insist at all until they got me to go with them to the classical guitar concert, which was amazing, but I was not interested in the guitar. And there was this one piece that the guitarist played with the flute. And that's when my world stopped, and I said, this is the instrument I'm gonna play, and I do not care that we don't own it. My dad says there is no way I'm buying the 6th instrument. She has 5 to choose from, so I do not care. There is your menu, and there you go. So I never left them alone until they bought me a flute. It was kind of a love at the first sight. That's how I always describe it. And I started playing flute when I was 9, and I never stopped until now. So that is the long story short.
All right. So now how about some mentors along the way? Like, I'm sure you had some great teachers, and what was part of really lighting that fire, in addition to obviously your early experience with, instruments all around your house and stuff?
I was really just a very motivated kid. We in Serbia, we have the system of music schools, and that is a little bit different than what is going on in the US, where the bands are attached to just regular schools and stuff. We have the completely separate institution of the music school, which is elementary and high. And at the same time, while we are going to the normal school, elementary, middle, high, we attend the music school on the side. And that's how I started. With elementary music school, we had instrumental lessons and solfege and oral skills. I started competing, I started playing with people, a lot of chamber music since I was young, and I think that kept my attention, playing with other people, hanging out with them, traveling to competitions and some orchestral tours. And I just realized how beautiful the world of music is, and I made a lot of friends and a lot of very, very nice music. So that's what kept me on that path, I guess. I graduated elementary music school, high music school, and then I went towards the degree. I never was in any doubt about what I want to do. I was only interested in music and nothing else. So I just went straight forward to all degrees, and now I'm the DMA degree. I hope this is the last one I have.
Well, I'll share with you that, I started very young. My dad was a great saxophone player,
Thank you so much for watching my video so far. If you'd like to support, there are several ways to do so below. Also, likes are free. Please comment, share, and subscribe. Now back to the video.
My dad was a great saxophone player, and so I had a great advantage. I started when I was 6, and I got 2 or 3, maybe 3 or 4 lessons a week, and he had a very attentive ear in the practice room. So if I was making mistakes and trying to go on, the next thing, no, that's a mistake. Stop there, do that again. Slow down. Are you even listening to yourself? So I got a lot of that. But I never really had to be told to practice. It was something that I wanted to do, which is a really strange thing. So you saying that you were motivated as soon as you saw the flute, you were just motivated to just do everything necessary to become great. That's not normal, and it took me a long time to figure out that I was not the usual thing. That just this instrument, me actually wanting to practice, like who wants to practice, Now I don't necessarily always want to practice these days, but back then that was the only thing I could think of, to do. But it's very unusual that folks have that kind of. It's as if it was meant to be. What does spirituality have a role in your musical pursuit?
How do you mean spirituality?
Well, where do you think that your desire to play, your falling in love with music, your sort of relentless, where do you think that comes from? Like,
So I think where it comes from now and where it was coming from when I was 8 is very much different. When I was 8 years old and I saw a flutist, to be completely honest, I did fall in love with her sound. But it was also, for me as a child, it was also very nice to see that it's different for the guitarist. When they wear a dress and they sit and play the guitar, you can't see the dress. But to me, that was really pretty that I could see her dress, and she was very pretty. And she was playing this instrument that is showing both her musicality and her amazing dress that she had. So that was my first impression.
Oh.
It's like a fairy tale kind of thing. And now, at this age, I just really enjoy the sounds that I am producing, and combination of sounds with other instrument that flute makes, and it's really all about the music itself. It's not about the adrenaline of performing that much as it is for the music itself.
Okay, so I, my day gig is, I teach, and something that frequently comes up in discussions that I have with my students is about getting nervous, right? So adrenaline, of course, plays a major role in getting nervous. So first I want to ask you, when you perform, do you experience any anxiety performing? Now, I'm not talking about stage fright or uncontrollable shaking or any of that kind of stuff. That's obvious that you don't experience that. But do you get anxious when you perform?
Anxiety was a very big thing for me in the past. When I enrolled for the University of Arts and the Faculty of Music Arts in my home country, this was the biggest school that we had, and it's still the biggest school that exists in Serbia. And there are so many amazing musicians in there, and that's when I actually realized that the world where I live in is full of musicians who are very good, and a lot of them are much better than I am. And that's when I started being critical about how good I were, and that's what started making me anxious when I performed. I really cared about what people think. I really cared about being fair to myself and to the hours spent in a practice room, to be fair to my teacher, to be fair to my parents, who were they were not really struggling, but they were trying to put me on a good path for my life and make me a good person and all that. So I can say they struggled in some ways, but not really a lot. And that's where when I started facing some things where I would sound like one person in a practice room and like completely other person on the stage, and my teacher had a talk to me, and we could not figure out a solution until I went to a master class in Hungary, and I met many musicians who went through the same thing as I was going through. So through conversations with people who actually were facing very similar anxiety attacks when they performed, I realized that I should do the music for the beauty of music, not for what the other people are going to think. So it's just like that. In 11 days of the master class, it just went away. And when I started really enjoying what I do without thinking about what the world is going to think, I started being very relaxed and self-confident. So right now I do not face any anxiety or any kind of nervous situations in my life when I perform. I really feel well about it.
Yeah. So when you were having anxiety, so I ruled a few things out. How did it manifest itself?
It manifested itself that I was slightly shaking, nothing too crazy. I've seen things that I did not know that people can shake that much. It was not too bad, but it made a wall in my head where I just thought that everyone is looking at me and waiting for me to make a mistake. So whenever I would see the plays that I knew I was struggling practicing before and I made it work, that was the one where I would make a mistake again. I don't even know how to describe it. It seemed to my family when they watched the performance like I am not putting enough effort in what I'm doing, but I actually was afraid to get out of my comfort zone. So I was just playing it safely, I guess, which was not enough to make it beautiful.
I see. One of the things that, again, one of my recent interviews with Dr. Isria Butler, who is a great trombonist, and he plays with everyone. Plays, as we say, both sides of the horn. He's a fine classical player. He's a great jazz player, and the school that he went to, I guess he went to Eastman School of Music, and apparently when he went there, and it wasn't just at Eastman, but it was at a lot of schools, students are sort of taking beta blockers and students taking beta blockers that don't even really need beta blockers. Like, they get nervous because nervous is part of just being alive. Like, if you don't, something that I tell my students frequently is, if you're not at least a little bit anxious, a little nervous, then it probably means that you don't care about what you're doing, And so a little bit of that is okay. In understanding what happens to you when you start to feel that way, and trying to strategize some approaches to sort of mitigating, to balancing whatever those effects are. When I get nervous, my tendency is to rush. So I don't trust myself counting tempos if I'm a little nervous. So one way that I fix that is I have a metronome that flashes. It doesn't make any sound, and I'll just look at I'll have pre-programmed whatever the selections are, what the tempos are, because I don't trust myself. Because if you play something really, really that's on the edge of your capability, and if you play it even 2 BPMs faster, it's over. There's no way that you're going to execute it well, right? So trusting myself to count a tempo when I'm a little nervous, it doesn't make any sense. So I've done that before. I learned my lesson. Now I just use the metronome all the time. But just different things like that. But the beta blockers thing, is that something that was suggested to you?
I did hear about them on some classes that we did, just informational. They would tell us they exist. I honestly have never used them. I just am not into anything that is chemicals and stuff. No matter how harmless it is, even when I have a headache, I'm avoiding to get a medicine for it. So I'm one of these people. And I think that would be only cheating on my own progress. I think when I had anxiety problems, that I had to face them, see where they're coming from, and fix them. Taking a beta blocker, it's not going to fix it. It's only going to make it a little bit painless, and then it's going to come back again. That's what I think.
So you're a tough cookie then. You don't even take anything for a headache?
Yes, I mean I do just when I really have to.
Okay, I see. All right. Well, okay. So I've seen footage of different concerts where you're like a featured soloist. What have been some of your favorite moments, and maybe some recent moments when you've been featured as a soloist?
I had a few of those, but I guess my biggest solo performances were the recent one. That was 3 weeks ago. I played the CP Bach Flute Concerto in D minor with the UNL Orchestra, and that was the result of the competition. It was a concerto and aria competition in our school that I won, and it was a great experience, especially because it came after a long break because of the pandemic. That concert was supposed to be performed in March, and then it was postponed, and our conductor was great about it and gave me another chance because I could not play with a mask on, of course. But one very dear concert that I performed was 2 years ago. It was also a concerto competition that I won, and I performed the Reinecke Flute Concerto. And that one was very significant for me because that was the piece I worked on. I just worked on the slow movement only when I was struggling with my anxiety, and that was the piece that kind of cured me from everything I was going through. And I remember when I was listening to Emmanuel Payou, who is one of the most famous flutists of all the time, performing that in Belgrade. I was sitting next to my flute teacher, and I looked at Payou performing with an orchestra this concerto, and I said, I don't think I could ever do this. So once when I get a chance to do it, when I fixed my brain from all the anxiety issues with performing, and was standing in front of the orchestra and realized that I can do it, that was one of the eye-opening moments and one of my favorite ever performances that I had. That is why it's very special. It was like a battle against myself.
Yeah. Because it's like you at one point you thought you weren't be able to do that, and then to be up there and actually doing it, that's great. Okay, so let me ask you about what you practice. So what kind of stuff do you practice, and what does your practice routine look like?
I always make sure to spend an hour practicing tone and technical exercises and scales before I do anything else. Just because if I skip that, there's no day that I would like how my tone sounds like if I haven't done these exercises. Of course, I don't do the same exercises every day, but I always do long tones. I do variations on them in different order and stuff, but it's always long tones, and it's always scales. It's always, I call them vocal exercises on flute. Simple melodies where I'm trying to sing through them, and then all the articulation stuff. And when I finish that, I start practicing etudes, and then whatever I have going on with orchestra and solo rap or chamber music. So it's always long tone, scales, tone and technical exercises first. I always make sure for that.
Now, what is your approach? Do you use the sort of Trevor Y kind of approach?
I am a French school flutist, and we have our Marcel Moïse flute Bibles. That's how I call it sometimes. So yes, I do some of the Trevor Y. He actually has great scale exercises. He has all scales written as a huge etude, and that's how I go through all the scales. I actually just did a Trevor Y today, but I always start with long tone exercises by Marcel Moïse, and then it kind of depends. There are a few books that I use.
Now, do you practice like overtone exercises, like the slurred and the articulated exercises?
Yeah, I do, and I do a lot of harmonics, sometimes whistle tones, just to make that tone centered where it needs to be and all that.
You know, two books really helped me a lot. I was studying with the great flute teacher Christine Smith from Western Michigan University. That's where I did my undergrad and my master's degree. This would have been when I was working on my undergraduate degree. I took a semester with her, and she really helped my flute playing because I was having some of the usual issues with certain notes cracking, like high E or C sharp or C in the same range on top of the staff there. I was having some of those usual kind of issues, and so we talked through she gave me some Trevor Y exercises and some overtone and harmonic series things that are actually in that book. And then also the thing that probably, and I still practice this regularly, the book Top Register Studies. The what is it? Thomas Felis. Are you familiar with that book?
Yes, my teacher from Nebraska actually uses that book a lot with undergrad students. They're required to do a lot of stuff from it for every lesson. So yes. Yeah.
That's a great book, and I guess there's two versions of the book. One of them is so the first volume or whatever is everything is in threes. Everything's grouped in threes, but the second volume is like everything's grouped in fours or something. But the book's about the same. But that book, and I've played through that whole book several times over the years. Really changed my playing. So anyhow, okay, so now do you keep track of your practicing? Do you have like a logging system?
No, I do have friends who do that. They have their little diaries, planners, and stuff. I've never done that, just because in my personal experience, I could never predict what's gonna need more or less work. Sometimes things I think they're just gonna go easy, they do not, and opposite. So whenever I want to practice, I just see what is the first thing that is coming up in terms of performances, or if there's juries or recitals coming up. I focus on that, and I just go through it and see how it goes and kind of let it be and practice as I think I should in the moment. And I'm just not someone who plans it a lot. I know a lot of people who do, and they say that their life changed since they're doing that, but it just doesn't work for me. Fortunately
And
or unfortunately.
well, yeah, I mean, I think you have to do what works for you. Um, uh, do you? Okay, so there's not unlimited time, so you must have an idea of how long you're going to practice.
Yes, I do not spend more than 4 hours, sometimes even less when the week is busy practicing. Of course, there is still, sometimes I say I played the whole day, but I barely practiced if there are orchestra rehearsals, chamber music groups, and
Right.
stuff. But I do try to practice at least for 3 hours, and ideally 4. I try not to go over 4 hours a day, just because it ruins my embouchure and everything else on top of the rehearsals that I have the same day. Sometimes I played for 8 hours one day, only sometimes, and that's really not something I like doing, just because I'm a woodwind player.
So, now, uh, I actually just completed a DMA. It was in summer of what was it? Summer of, is that right? Summer of 2019. That's right. Summer of 2019. And I would have completed it probably earlier, except I'm full-time teaching at Ohio State, and then 25 hours a week at a church, and then my son was just born, and freelance performing and everything else. So it was just like a bunch of stuff going on at the same time. And honestly, I'm still not sure how I was able to do that. The first 2 years, I was a full-time student, and the school is 2 hours from my house. So I had to go down 3 times per week. So, it was 12 hours in the car. And, so I tried to find some different ways to use that driving time as part of studying. So, I was recording all my lectures, recording lessons, recording everything, and I was listening in the car as a way to try to use that time in some kind of productive way. But one thing about doing it that way is I didn't get the sort of so when I did my master's degree, I interacted. That was a full-time student. That's all I was doing. I mean, I was a band director at a church or something. But I was, but that's all I was doing. So I could spend more time with students, developing relationships, taking advantage of maybe some networking opportunities and stuff like that. But doing the doctorate, there was none of that, because I had to just get in and get out. And it's one thing that there wasn't any way for it to be different. But if that could have been different, that would be the one thing that I would have changed. But what is life? What is life like as a doctoral student?
It's very interesting, especially because I came to a DMA degree at the State University from a conservatory system. I was someone who played tons of hours per day, barely had academic courses on my bachelor's and master's degree, and boom, I came here and they gave me histories, theories, assistantship duties and all that stuff. And I just sat and I said, what do I do with all this and how do I practice? And then I realized that I have to wake up early and go to bed late if I want to do everything I need to do. I realized that it's not going to last forever. It's going to only last for 3 or 4 years. And whenever I feel overwhelmed, I say to myself that it's not forever. And I'm grateful because I got a very good opportunity here to work as a teaching assistant, to be a fellow. It's very helpful that I'm not even paying for school, and I know that that's something that not a lot of people got into, and I just start being grateful, and I don't complain, and I sleep less, and I eat more and drink more coffee, and I just...
You said you sleep less and drink more coffee.
Yes, it's only for a few years, and good thing I'm doing doctorate in this age and not in the age of 60, which I find impressive when people in older age do things like this. I just don't think I could do it. But yes, I just see what I have, and I see what is coming up first, and I take care of whatever is coming up first. I apologize for what comes after that and say I really have to finish this first. And one thing that really helps me a lot is that all of my teachers and all of my mentors and all of my bosses are very understanding and very helpful with everything I do. So that's 50% of happiness.
So, I like this. You said you don't complain. Cultivating gratefulness. That's great. That's good advice for anyone, no matter what they're doing. And I like the thing that you said that you know it's bearable because it's temporary. It's not going to last forever. And that is definitely something that crossed my mind several times. I was like, oh my goodness. It's not going to be forever. It's going to be okay. And I'll share something that my dad told me. So when I was in high school, especially like when I was a junior and senior in high school, I'd say to my dad, like, why do I have a bedtime? None of my friends have bedtimes. Which wasn't exactly true, but, you have to hyperbolize to make your point, right? Because I did have some friends that had bedtimes. But it's like there's a lot of folks that don't have bedtimes. Why do I have to have a bedtime? Because I was going to bed at like 10 o'clock or something. And he said, well, you need your sleep, like this. I said, okay, well, when I go to college, am I still going to have a bedtime? He said, no. When you're in college, you don't need sleep.
Yes, I can relate to that. Even if you need sleep, there's no time for that. So.
That's right. See, the point here is that the priority there is not on sleeping. It's on getting grades.
Yeah. Very true.
So, anyhow, that was, my dad is turned into a real softie. I interviewed him on this same series, actually. I started when I was really young, so frequently my students and other folks asked me questions about what was it that I practiced when I was young. What did I start with? I don't know. I can't remember. And that was one of the reasons that I wanted to interview my dad. But also I wanted to interview him because I think he is he's unusual in his dedication to his kids and all of the sacrifices that he made. And I'm blessed and fortunate to have someone that though he didn't grow up with the same sorts of opportunities that I have, he made sure to create those for us. And and I think that folks like that should be celebrated. Men that put their family first in that way really should be praised and celebrated. So, all right. So what do you see in the future? What are you doing all this music stuff for?
Well, I am still not sure. I know that I cannot be picky with what I want to do because there are a lot of people around. There are a lot of opportunities, but I know that an opportunity I get will choose me, and not that I will choose the opportunity. I can just put a few of them in a little bucket and try everywhere, and where they accept me, that's where I go. But I guess that I would really like to work in an orchestra. I know I'm doing a DMA degree that is going towards teaching more, and I really enjoy teaching, and I would always keep teaching. But if I would have to choose between playing in a professional orchestra or teaching, I would definitely choose the professional orchestra. But I also really love teaching, so I would be fine teaching only if I would have to do that. So I guess that when I am done with the second year and when I'm closer to graduating, because right now it's still early to do any of that, I will start looking for both teaching and performance jobs, and just try everywhere I can and see what happens.
Yeah. All right. And now you just said that you don't want to be picky, but if you were going to be picky, is there a part of the world that you would like to be in?
There's no part of the world, but definitely where there's seas or oceans, that's where I would like to be.
Okay.
So, yes, that's something that I would really like to be close to. I would like to live on a coast and just watch the waves all the day when I'm not working and live that kind of life.
I see. So in other words, where you live now would not be your first choice.
Probably not. This is my very good choice for school, but of course, if I would be offered a very good job, I would definitely accept it, because a very good job would give me opportunities to travel. So I would not say no because there's no seaside. But if I would be able to choose, I would not stay in Nebraska probably for the rest of my life. Even though I'm having a great time here right now, I would move somewhere closer to waters.
All right. So okay, so I'll start this out by admitting by sharing something that I have learned. So it takes a special person, and I'm talking about as far as a love interest, someone, and actually even often is the case, close friends. It takes special folks to understand the lifestyle of a musician. In particular, to not be intimidated or be jealous of the amount of time that must be spent by yourself. And I have found that choosing a wrong person, spending too much time with the wrong person, very much can take a lot of the energy out It's like you can't afford it. You can't afford to do it. Uh, without specifically asking you for any details, do you think that what it is that I'm saying is the case?
I think it depends of a person. A lot of times, since I've been in music since my early age, I was surrounded by musicians. 80% of my friends and people I'm surrounded with are musicians. I did have a few very good, close people in my life who are not musicians or were not musicians. And I do not think that it depends on what they do. It depends on what kind of person of people they are, and more importantly, it depends of if they like the music or not. I had very good friends that I had to practice at their house and do long tones on flute, third octave, which sometimes it screams, and they were fine with it. They said, we are gonna go through this. Sometimes it's painful, but we love you. You can practice at our home. You have a performance coming up. So sometimes even though some sounds, it's not the same going to someone's concert and listening people practicing. Sometimes even I feel sick of my tone because sometimes it's too loud, especially practicing the piccolo. But if you're surrounded by people who are supportive and know why you are doing what you're doing and how much you love what you're doing, I think that's something that is the most important. Just finding the right people, no matter if they're musicians or not.
Yeah. Now, has your music caused you to have to sacrifice in other sorts of relationships?
Not really. I never had any strange experiences. Sometimes people who do not know me well, they ask me what I do, and then I tell them what I do, and they're like, yeah, and what do you study? And I say, I study music. That's what I do. Oh. And then they get confused. And to be honest, if I see that that's the direction they're going towards, what are you going to do with that? I just cut off before we go towards an argument. And I say, I think you're great, but I gotta go. And I will never argue about it. Because there are people who don't understand that what we do is not a hobby. It's
right.
what we do.
Well, to this point, there's this. Did you see the movie Whiplash?
Yes.
Okay. Now I'm gonna. Okay. So let me. Okay. So my dad, who was my teacher all the way until I went to college, he started watching the movie and he turned it off, and then he called me and he said, "Have you seen this movie Whiplash?" I said, "I haven't seen it yet. I'm probably going to watch it because a lot of my students, have asked me questions about it, and I want to be able to, speak, intelligently about the movie. So eventually I'm going to watch the movie." And man, he just started going in on the movie. He was like, I mean, what kind of crazy premise is this that, threats and, throwing stuff at people and stuff like that is going to make them better musicians? It's totally ridiculous. I mean, he was like this. But, there was something in that movie. There's a scene in the movie that I think every musician can relate to on some level. And it was the scene where I think he was at his girlfriend's house or something, and they were eating, and then they started asking him all of these questions about what he was going to do for his career. So what are you going to do with music? How are you going to pay your bills and blah, blah, blah. They, started this kind of thing. And, and that's tough. The thing is that I think, parents and friends and other people, I think that they think that they're doing a service. They're helping you by by expressing a lot of these views, and so they feel compelled. They feel compelled to share them, to say this stuff, and it's like, yeah, you really should kind of keep that stuff to yourself, you know. And the thing that you said about the hobby, you know, because I love what I do, you know, I think so few people get to do something with their life that they actually love doing. And so when people see musicians as loving what it is that they do, I think they don't have a place for that. So, you know, I've done the thing like all musicians have, where you go to some private party and then it gets out that you're a musician. And I almost don't even want to have those conversations. No, but it gets out that you're a musician, and then somebody invariably says, "Oh, you should have brought your saxophone with you, or you should have brought your instrument with you. Man, we would have loved to hear you play." You know, like this, as if, you know, look, hey man, you're a plumber. You know what? You should have brought your stuff with you. I have a toilet in here that needs, you know, it's like, why do people think that because you're a musician, that means that you're just ready to jump up and start playing anytime, you know? And by the way, I get paid for what it is that I do. So, you know, anyhow, yeah.
I completely agree with that, and some people will never understand that. I still don't have my own family, but one day hopefully I will, and I gotta feed my kids out of something, and this is what I did 4 degrees for, and I'm not gonna do it. Sometimes, yes, for the best friend, we play for free and all that, but not for everyone, right?
So I asked you about some future goals and things. What about away from the music? Do you have some hobbies?
I think my hobbies are related to music because I sing. That's my hobby. And I did do some voice lessons, and now I'm enrolled for voice lessons again. I do choir, and that is my hobby. It's still related to music. I honestly, whatever I have, whatever free time I have, I listen to the music, or I sing, or I play. I don't know, since the early age, that's how it is.
Okay, now you're in shape. Physically fit, you're in shape. Is that something that is that a regular pursuit, or you just have good genes?
I do have good genes, thank God, but I do go to gym sometimes and work out. Not as often as I would like to because of all the schedules or the rehearsals and practicing and all that, but I do go to the gym, and it helps me every time relax, and I just feel much better after it, same as everyone else, I guess.
Yeah, so they've done all these studies that show that when you work out regularly, you're releasing endorphins. When you do these strenuous activities, it releases endorphins. And I'll tell you, the two things that I missed the most, especially the first 2 months of the pandemic, the two things were performing on a stage in front of an audience. That's a big one, of course. And then the second one is going to the gym. Now, I live in a part of the country where we never really locked down hard. The numbers were never crazy. But for the first 2 months, no gyms were open. But then after that, everything was fully open. So by May, what was it? It was the day after Memorial Day. It was the day after Memorial Day the gyms opened. And they had some restrictions. You had to wear a mask. You had to get temperature checked. They had repurposed the gym. They were doing frequent cleaning and stuff, and there weren't as many people going to the gym, so there was more space between things. But you could still take a shower. You could still do all those kind of things. They had it in the locker room so that it was like every other locker you could use, so the people weren't in there so close together. But I've been a five days a week person in the gym, and I absolutely need it because what I do for a living I love, but I'm a director of a program, I'm director of jazz studies, and recently I playing music in church has been a regular part, and I recently actually left a position at a church where I was a minister of music. So there's that, and then there's all of this other stuff that's going on, and there's, my son is 8, and, so there's that, and all of the other stuff, the internet content and everything else. And so it can, you can start getting kind of stressed out. And I'll tell you, I go to the gym, I work out hard, and at least, for several hours after that, I feel much better. I just do. Now, besides the fact that, the term musician's physique is not it's pejorative. That's not usually a good thing, right? Because we spend all these hours in the practice room and not necessarily, taking care of ourselves physically. So I'm always happy to see when folks are aware of that and doing what's necessary to keep themselves healthy. If you don't have your health, you don't have anything. If you don't have your health, you can't play, with the kind of endurance and intensity that you'd like to. You strike me, though, as a person that probably gets so intense in what you're doing that you probably forget to eat.
That is actually one thing that I never forget. Even if I forget to sleep, it's because since my early childhood, they fed me all the time. It was really important to eat and then do everything else. So I do not look like someone who eats a lot, but I cannot go practice if I don't eat. And if the world's gonna end if I go eat, I'm gonna eat and watch the world ending, but I have to eat. So that is one thing that I make sure that I do. And the same way as the gym helps with feeling better, I think eating well helps with everything. I just feel much stronger when I work out and go practice and eat and go practice. I have more muscle to use for my playing. We use our stomach muscles, and if my stomach's empty, I can just hear it, and I feel bad, and I cannot project the sound that I would like to project. So to me, that it's very important to always eat before do anything else.
Yeah, I have to eat before the gym for sure, because I don't have anything to push off of or something. It's like it's not a good experience if I don't eat before I go to the gym. But I have an issue sometimes, especially when I'm very busy. I've got like projects due, and I just have busy day, and it's hard for me to even leave my office. I'll like go 8 hours without eating, 10 hours, and then I probably eat too late and all of that. So anyhow, I'm working on it. So all right, so talk to us about maybe some I did want to ask you this. When I ask you about maybe influential musicians, so maybe flute players that you maybe model aspects of your musicianship after, people that you really admire, and maybe some composers that you really love their music, maybe because of pieces that you've, performed, or, yeah.
So I will start with, I guess, composers. I'm someone who is really into Baroque music, and nothing that is post-romantic. I really do not like anything that is contemporary. I wish I could say something different about it because of the time we live in. But I really love old composers. My first favorite is C.P. Bach. Everything I've ever played by him was amazing and beautiful, and it's like he was like a rock and roll composer of his time. I do like Johann Sebastian, but C.P. Bach is my favorite, and I always make jokes with my friends. I say if C.P. Bach and I lived at the same time, we would probably be the best friends, or I would try to be his best friend. Maybe I would not be too cool for his friendship. Then my first favorite flutist is Emmanuel Payou. Same as probably the favorite flutist of a lot of flutists. It's just everything he does I really love. I listen to the beauty of the tone more than everything, but this is someone who has all the technical stuff all set and a beautiful tone. One other flutist that I really enjoy listening is Vincent Lucas. He's a very famous French flutist. I was French schooled back in my home country. My teacher studied in Paris, so he was really trying to teach me all these coloring nuances of the beautiful sound before I do anything else. I guess for my role models, that would probably be my mom. I would always like to be like my mom, to have her personality, to be kind and nice, like her. And I don't know, there are probably a lot of people I forgot to mention right now. If I thought about this question for 10 minutes, I would probably have a lot more to say, but this is what first comes to my mind. And one other role model is my teacher, my flute teacher from Serbia, who taught me since I was 15 years old until I graduated my master's degree. And together with my first flute teacher, he is the person that I owe everything I know to. Pretty much everything. I am in Lincoln for a year. I learned a lot from my current teacher, but someone who really set up all the basic stuff and made me build all the artistry that I have is my teacher from the university in Belgrade from the Faculty of Music Arts.
Yeah. I told you that my dad was my teacher until I graduated from high school. Well, actually, until I went to college. Because actually, I didn't want to go to college. I didn't like school. I try not to say that a lot, because it seems really strange that someone that has gone as far in as I have in academia and been in school as long as I have would say that they didn't really like school. But I didn't. I mean, I was more about performing and playing. And so when I got out of high school, I was like, I just want to tour. I want to play and like this. And and I practiced a lot. I was practicing 8 hours a day the year after I graduated high school, living with my parents, of course. And then I got to the point where I was like, well, maybe I should go to college. And so I went to a junior college for a year, community college, and then transferred into 4-year school, Western Michigan University in Kalamazoo. And then I did my undergrad and my master's degree. I did them back to back. And then, I started, working. My first full-time job was as a band director at a church, band director and the pastor's assistant. And then I did that for a year and a half, and then I started teaching. I was an orchestra director for the Lansing School District. I did that for a year and a half, and when I was doing that, I had 5 jobs. So I was the full-time orchestra director, the insurance and benefits, all of that. Okay, part-time band director in another school district, in a charter school, and teaching that in the evenings, 3 days a week. Band director at a church. I taught. I had about between 15 and 20 students. So I taught private lessons out of my house. And then I also, I was, a freelance musician. So writing music and producing recordings and traveling and all this stuff, And that's what you have to do. You do what you have to do. You do what's necessary. And then that's when I found out about the job posting in the job that I'm in now, and that was in 2004. I applied for the position and I got the job, and so yes, and I still think I have 5 jobs though. I don't know how that worked. But it's all music, and it's all been engaging, and you never know what's going to happen next. But it's all music. It's all music.
Yes, I think music school is a very special kind of school. I'm also someone who doesn't like school, but just because I go to school for something I love, I do not always consider it going to school. So a lot of
Right.
I do realize I'm in school when I have some academic assignment that I have zero knowledge about, and I have to figure it out quick and figure out how to write an essay or something that it's not performing. That's when I realize I'm in school. But that is not as often, thank God, which is why I came so far with my education.
Yeah, I the school thing. So my issue has always been, okay, so the teacher will teach a lesson and they'll give us specific instructions about this is what the assignment is, and I would always have these sort of following the rules, but kind of, in a different altitude than what the intended assignment was. And it was always challenging for me to keep these other ideas that I have, because as soon as you start talking to me, I'm thinking about how that relates to all of this other stuff, and it can get really abstract really quickly. So that was always a challenge. It wasn't an issue of aptitude. It was an issue of just kind of making myself stay focused in on what the specific task was, Yeah.
And I think it has to do a lot with creativity. As artists, we're very creative, which creates that abstraction and stuff. So we are not taught to think in 2 colors. We're taught to create stuff, and it's very hard to do something that is very basic for us. That's what I think.
So, on one of your, I think it was on Facebook. It might have been on Instagram also. But I think I remember seeing it on Facebook, and it was you singing, and it was a slow. It was like a ballad, and it seemed like it wasn't in English.
I think I know what that was. Yes.
Yeah, beautiful.
That is a Croatian singer. He passed away recently. Croatian and Serbian are almost the same languages. It's just a different dialect sometimes, but we understand each other, everything. So it's a very famous Croatian singer.
Yeah. Well, it was great, and a comment that I saw, and actually, Dr. Doug, it was actually his comment, and he said that he wanted to hear you sing more, or sing in conjunction with some of your performances on flute. Is that something that you've considered?
I haven't. I was asked to do that once, and I did. It was, I think, a year or two ago. Yes, I had a performance in one church in Wisconsin, and they asked me to play something that comes from my home country.
I see.
And then when I played it, they said it sounds very vocal and asked me if that is a song with lyrics. I said yes, and then they asked me to sing and play. The person who was hired in church as their pianist, he accompanied me, and I played, and then I sang, and then I played again. So I did do that, but not in anything more advanced than a folk song yet.
Yeah, I think you have something there. Of course, love your flute playing. There's nothing to take away from that, but the singing is great too. And you have your voice is unusual, beautiful, unusual.
Thank you.
So yeah. All right. Well, is there anything that you would like to promote?
Not really. I'm thinking about upcoming performances. There is my recital is coming up. It's probably going to be live streamed. It's on my Facebook profile, and it's going to be listed in the bio on my Instagram page. So there's going to be a live stream of that on November 30th. So that's something I would like to promote.
Sure. And what I'll do is I will put your Instagram, I will put it in the description to this video so folks can find that easily. And maybe our paths will cross at some point, and we'll maybe get to play some music together sometime.
Sure, hopefully one day.
Yeah. And now I don't live by water, so I'm in the center of Ohio, where there is not water until you get there are some rivers, and but that's not what we're talking about. And there's some small lakes. That's not the real thing. The closest water is like what is it? The lakes around Michigan. So it's like Lake Michigan. I think it might be Lake Michigan. We went to on vacation this. Was that this summer? I think it was this. Man, it's strange. Maybe it was Labor Day weekend or something. I don't even remember what it was. So much of stuff has happened since then. But we went up there, and the beach up there is beautiful. Of the lakes, because a lake is not an ocean. It's not really the same thing, right? But this is the closest thing to an ocean sort of experience, at least in this part of the country. So
that's for sure.
So we settled for that.
I lived in Milwaukee for 3 years, and Milwaukee's right on the Lake Michigan. And if I didn't know that was the Lake Michigan, I would think it were the ocean. So it's one of the most beautiful waters I've ever seen. That's for sure.
Absolutely. All right. Well, it's been great talking to you. This is going to premiere tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on my YouTube channel. If you're around, you want to hop in and maybe write some comments in the chat or something, or just check it out, then please do so. I will send it to you it's probably going to get sent to you tonight. So I figured out how to do this thing where I can put a link in an Instagram. What is it called? They just started doing that, because it used to be like you had to have like 10,000 followers or something, and then they would let you put a link in your story. But now I guess everybody can do it. So I certainly can do that, but I'll just email you the link, and then I'll tag you or something on some post or something. All right.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Well, God bless you, and much good luck to all of your endeavors, all your studies. I'm there with you. I understand. I get it. But not much longer, and it'll be over.
It's not forever. That's right.
That's right. Well, good for you, and I'll see you later.
Bye.
All right now.